Hello, friends. Welcome back to Training. Today's Thursday, August 31st. Dude, September, it's tomorrow.
It is.
It's crazy. Can't believe it. Anyway, it's 9:30. Grateful to have you with us. Good morning, Joe.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Doing good.
Yeah, no Frocket
today.
today. No Frocket.
It's a rare no Frocket day.
Yeah,
so,
all
but,
right.
you know.
Because I gave you some junk about it last week. I got mine, though.
Hey, way to go.
Come on.
Ah, shoot. If I only would have known. Next time.
We need to sync the Frocket, vibe, energy.
I like it. We need to have a Taylor Swift bracelet that says Frocket. That's what we need.
That's what we do. That would be the singularity of the most recent episode of Trending.
Love it.
Which you can find on the pods and on YouTube if you'd like. If you feel like completely lost right now.
In case people forgot or don't know, the other day I was out running and I finished all my other podcasts, so I listened to Trending just because I haven't really listened to it for a while. And so if you ever aren't able to watch, just a reminder that you can also listen wherever you get your podcasts. And so if that's more convenient for you, check us out on the podcast. But
sometimes I'll put on the Trending pod and slow it down to half speed.
Oh, yeah?
Just to hear what we sound like in slower motion.
Do you do like 3X to get the chipmunk?
Oh, thing? Yeah, man. I'm here for it.
That's awesome. All right, well, as we just mentioned, it's end of August. September's around the corner. And so Monday is a holiday in the U.S. We got Labor Day coming up. And so Labor Day was trending on Twitter and Google. I think people are already anticipating a long weekend and wanting a reminder of what Labor Day is. It cracks me up. Even I'm 35 still. I always have trouble remembering which is Labor Day, which is Memorial Day. I think a lot of people have trouble remembering which is which.
So
it's still a thing.
When you take New Testament Greek, you have to memorize new words. You have to you employ these memory devices.
Okay.
So I've got one for Memorial and Labor Day.
Great.
It's the flip of how they are in the alphabet. If I can remember that.
Yeah.
L comes before M or M comes before L. So right. So anyway, Memorial Day then Labor Day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Monday is Labor Day, not Memorial Day.
Right.
And I thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about that, Joe. I think we did a brief rundown of this last year, but I don't remember what we said. I'm guessing people watching don't remember what we said.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
Labor Day, I think, is interesting because I don't know really the history of how it all started, the labor unions and all that kind of stuff. But now, of course, most people get the day off. Most people are grateful for that. It's good. But I feel like as Christians especially, we have this weird relationship with work where the Bible tells us to work hard, whatever you do, work as if unto the Lord. Mm-hmm. Both in the Bible and in culture, hard work is rewarded.
Right. And
at the same time, the Bible and like modern medicine, modern psychology tells us that rest is also really important, and a lot of people work too hard.
Right.
The past handful of years, the whole 4-day work week thing has become more of a thing, or some businesses, even some schools are starting a 4-day work week because they find that they're actually more, they're able to get more work done in 4 days than they are in 5 sometimes. Work is just weird. I think we're in a time when people are kind of reevaluating work.
Right.
So lots to talk about. Let's start with just the overview. When you think about Labor Day, what are some of the first things you think about, Joe?
Labor Day, I think it signals like the end of summer and the beginning of fall. I think it's more ceremoniously because we're going to have hot days in September, obviously.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, it's Kansas. Wait
Maybe
5
not.
minutes. Yeah, right. So you kind of sense the changing of seasons. For football fans out there, it signals the NFL season starting, the true week 1 of the college football season.
Yeah.
So I think it represents that. I think families and people get together. There's a interesting article on WikiHow on what to do. I was like, what are things that like Americans uniquely do on Labor Day?
Yeah.
And I guess there's like parades and festivals in some towns. I've never seen one. Never really heard of one, but I wasn't really looking for one. But there are towns and major cities where they have like big parades. That may have been where it came from. The urban legend, according to the Wikipedia page on Labor Day, says like an American actually was visiting Toronto, and it's because Canada was early to this than we were. Okay, and saw like a big parade, and it kind of brought the idea to the American people, and eventually got some legislation passed for it to be a federal holiday. So in some parts of the world, they actually like take a 2-week vacation, like the second half of August. It's just common for people just to take it off work totally, and it culminates on Labor Day, and it signals them going back into work after the Labor Day celebration and observance. So I just think for us, like as you've kind of said in the run-up here, Americans, it's like fish doesn't recognize the water they swim in because it's just water, right?
Yeah, right.
I think outsiders looking at us, they find it very inspirational how much we work.
Yeah.
And I think they find it terrifying at the same time how much we work, because they just see, a great exhaustion among the American people. So
Yeah.
one day off is nice,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I think people may struggle like I do. Whenever I take a vacation, 4 or 5 day vacation, I kind of treat vacation like work the first 2 days. You know, I'm like making sure that everybody's got lunch on time, and you know, making sure that we make the most of the time that we have away and go see the sights and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I actually have to like unplug a little bit. It takes me like 48 hours before I actually rest. And so I think that we do this. Like rest is a bit of an elusive category for all of us.
Yeah.
And it seems to have been something even ancient Israel struggled with. And so from the very beginning, like out of the box, as God was like setting up his covenant people in their promised land, he's like, this Sabbath thing, like it really is going to be important, and you shouldn't skimp on it. There were some steep regulations, some dire consequences if you did not observe the Sabbath. And what the rabbis have talked about in the chatter around the 10 Commandments is that the first few commandments are, you know, your posture towards God.
Yeah.
And the second half of the list is your posture towards people.
Right.
Sabbath is like the bridge. It's the bridge command between the commands to God and the commands to people, almost to say like you cannot keep a balance or the fully orbed commandment keeping promises unless you get Sabbath right.
Yeah.
And something that comes up in the spiritual formation literature, almost kind of like a joke, but I don't know. I think it was Oscar Wilde says, you need to make people laugh if you're going to tell them the truth, or they'll kill you. Like, so this is kind of a bit of a laughing matter, but if you or I were to go to the leadership board of Ridgepoint and we just go through the 10 Commandment list, if we were to struggle with any of the others, like say, you know what, I'm struggling with theft. Like
Right.
I'm kind of stealing lately, right? Or any of the others.
Yeah.
Like there would be like we might be grounds for termination. The unfortunate thing is that, you know what, I'm really struggling with like Sabbath keeping and rest. That it actually might be like an attaboy.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we expect you to not just work, but maybe overwork. No, I'm not trying to say that. Our particular leadership board would say that.
It's not unique to us. That's America.
Yeah, that's right. So this is something that we're a little bit out of balance with, even with our faith tradition.
Yeah.
Can we give ourselves the license to rest? And that's something I think we're going to grapple with. Even with our technology upgrades and work that's more efficient, I think there's still just this great exhaustion across the board, and churches are not immune to it. In fact, I got a write-up from William Vanderbloom, and he runs a third-party search group for churches and they call it like value organizations. So it could be like Christian schools and other nonprofits and stuff like that. They just did a cultural survey of all of their network of folks. And he just made like 4 comments from the culture surveys.
Cool.
And one of the things that he says is that we actually have to be more at rest. He said, and I'm just quoting here, he says, church life is busier than ever, pivoting over and over for the last 3 years, and everyone has been doing more than normal. There's a cautionary tale here, though. Organizations can go for a while without work-life balance. If you don't believe me, just think back to the last time you and your church worked your way through the Christmas season. But in the long run, there needs to be a rhythm of rest in every organization. It even like challenges churches.
Yeah.
When you look at your budget, do you actually budget rest for your people? It might be something to consider. Yeah. And so this is something I think as we think about like going through the pandemic and shutdowns and kind of reopening and all those things, there has been just this, all the work-life balance is out of whack. Yeah. And so how do we get it back and how do we keep it? Because it seems to be a value for the people of God.
I think especially in America, but I think increasingly around the world, we just value productivity so much. Yeah. And even the 4-day work week, I think some people advocate for that because they advocate that you can be equally or possibly even more productive if you only work 4 days. If there was a really steep decline in productivity or output, I don't think they'd advocate for it. It's just this obsession with how can we make the most possible things? How can we make the most, like there's just this obsession with making the most of our time, which can be a good thing, but when it becomes that obsession about how can we do as much as possible, that's when it gets dangerous. Yeah. And you hear politicians talk about keeping up with China or whatever, because China's probably even worse than we are in some of these regards. So there's some of this like worldwide competition stuff. So, and you talk about the church, and of course, we both work at church, but I think it's true in the workforce too. Maybe in some cases even more so. So it's a great way to start the conversation. So what do we do? What's the next step?
Yeah, I think we need to find a way to evaluate it. I think like anything else, there probably isn't a hard fast rule for everybody.
Yeah.
But maybe a category of enough is something that we have to get a handle of. I think that's in our finances. Like, what is enough really financially for us to have? And then can we then relinquish this pursuit, this neck-breaking pursuit of getting more money? Like, what does enough look like? Okay, enough to live on, enough to be generous, enough to save for the uncertain future, and then learn to live with it. I think the same thing with productivity. Yeah. Now that's kind of a challenging situation, right? Because you typically work in teams. People count on you as a teammate. Yeah. And so maybe there needs to be more of like a team-based discussion on what does enough look like. Yeah. I think that correlates with, should we get more people to work for us and with us so that we can have people have more than enough to do, so that one person's not maybe working to the depths over and over again. I worked with a pastor. He was just in not on his staff, but we worked in the same denomination. He found out what enough for him was like. So this is like kind of like the last third of his career. He recognized that he could really run hard for 6 straight weeks, but then he needed to take a week completely off.
Okay.
And that worked for him. And that he was a preacher, the main preacher of the church. And so he would do 6 straight Sundays, and then one of his staff would preach the 7th. Okay. And during that week off, he would actually get away. Like, he actually bought a vacation place. Yeah. Okay, modest one. But he's like, it's a place where I need to be able to take my dogs with me, So like, I could just see like his car packed, like, dogs in there, maybe a kayak on top, of the SUV. And he did minimal email. Yeah. He read for leisure or for planning the next sermon stuff. Yeah. And he would spend just hours on his deck, his dogs next to him. They'd take a walk on paths and stuff like that. But it was enough for him to recharge. So what was enough? 6 straight weeks. And then just 1 week was enough to get recharged and go back in. So I think it's important for us to figure out what is enough and then try to stick with it. Yeah. And then evaluate it. There's nothing wrong with examining it and say, no, I can go a little bit harder, or no, I've bitten off more I could chew here. Yeah. And I just need to be realistic about what really I can do before it gets into like a languishing period. We do kind of operate on like a spectrum of flourishing and languishing. And so I think we need to try to figure out, what does flourishing look like? Yeah. And what are some of the signs that I'm languishing here, and how can I get rested back? So those are a couple things that come to my mind.
I think, and for me personally, I think this is probably true for a lot of people. I don't know, I haven't really figured out what my sequence is like that. But I think most of the time I can work pretty hard for a while and I'm okay. But I think for me, a downside for me personally is I can do that for a long time until I can't anymore, and then I'm just done. Right. And then I just kind of need it. But it's hard I haven't found that rhythm yet for me personally. Right. So I guess if people watching, maybe if they struggle with this, or they're not really sure, Labor Day is on Monday, they're not really sure, what does that mean? How can they celebrate? Or if they kind of take a minute to look at their normal patterns, see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. If people don't have that structure yet, do you have any advice for them about how they can start to figure that out?
Yeah, I just think the Christian sages have always talked about examination. Socrates, not a Christian, but the unexamined life is not worth living. But to Ignatius, who was a great spiritual formation thinker, he did examine every day. And there was a few things that he would do, but one of the commonplace things that he would do is he would say, what was my consolation and desolation of the day? Okay, very flowery language. Yeah. But when did I feel most alive? And then when did I feel like dead inside? Yeah. And he would do that every day, and he would look for patterns. And so I think that the Christian ethic is always what does love look like? And I think when we're not well rested, we become less loving. And that is the period, the end of story. So something that I do have, it's like the last day of the month. This is something I've built into my own life. I may have shared it on training before, but there's 2 questions that Willard said that we should ask regularly. It gets to the bottom of the state of our soul, which I think is directly connected to work and rest balance. But he said, ask yourself these 2 questions. Am I becoming more or less easily irritated? Am I more or less loving these days? Yeah. And I think that not only should we answer that for ourselves, but then go to our immediate community, the people who matter the most to us, and say, just from the outside looking in,
Yeah.
Where am I at, you suppose? Am I overworked and tired? And because of that, irritable, maybe short-tempered? Or do you feel like I'm in the flow right now? I just think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And then I think on top of that, like this might be a weird thing, but a couple of our common friends, Matt and Mike Jaderston, they lured me into this Whoop community. So I've got this fitness wearable, Whoop.
Yeah.
You probably have gotten ads from it on YouTube.
If they didn't before, they will now.
Yeah, because we've mentioned it, right?
Yeah.
But and I'll try to take a picture of it. But like if you wear the Whoop all the time, and they make it to where you can charge it while it's still on your wrist, so you don't have to have to take it off. But it constantly measures heart rate and stuff like that. And what I like about it is that it gives a recovery and a strain score. In your sleep, in your exercise activity, your heart rate is all in this. So what's neat about it is that like in real time, it'll tell you like you need to probably have X amount of hours of sleep tonight in order to get recovered. Yeah. Or hey, like you've been doing great recovery lately, you could push it a little bit and reach further in fitness or activity. Yeah. And so cool. I just love it because if it's helpful or not, if it's accurate or not, like it does kind of give you some sort of a minute by minute score, whether you heat it or not. And even like it has a couple things like right now my skin temperature is elevated, like 2 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And my blood oxygen is a little low. So I gotta like think about that. I have no idea how to amend that right away. But like I don't know. So I just think we've got some of these interesting tech things. Maybe it's not so accurate. Yeah. But I'm using it. But I think also just some examination and then bringing in our immediate community to kind of weigh in. And we need to be humble enough to listen. Yeah. Then perhaps we can find that sweet spot of our rest and productivity ranges.
No, that's good. So I'm not going to get the reference right. You can help me out. What is the reference about whatever you do working as if under the Lord? What's the
I think it's Colossians 3. In the immediate context, Paul's addressing slaves.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyways. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was going to just say, I think a lot of times we put a modern spin on it, right? And I think a lot of the time we assume that means work really hard. Right. Whatever you're doing, work really hard, but as if you're working for God himself. And maybe you can help us out. I don't know what the immediate context is, but to me that seems like a pretty modern American twist. And working under the Lord may not mean working 10 hours a day. So we'll kind of wrap up here, I think. If our goal is to live with whatever, even if that verse is maybe not directly applied to us, that's still a good goal, I think, to work as if under the Lord. So what does that mean? That probably doesn't mean work until you're dead. What does that look like for a modern Christian? What would you say?
Wow. I mean, so I think there's probably a balance between making the most of every opportunity. I mean, that is a command in Scripture, but it may be a twin idea of being a person of delight. We need to delight ourselves in the Lord. We delight ourselves among the people of God. Because I think there comes a point that we do cross a threshold where we overwork ourselves and we're just not real delightful. Yeah. And we almost like resent the work, right? And so I would just say more than anything else, maybe start with a mantra and prayer that I'm going to give my best. I'm going to be present to my coworkers. Yeah. I'm going to be open to providing solutions when issues come up and not be a complainer, right? But overall, I want to delight in it. And I think this goes back to the very last parable that Jesus told in the parable ministry of Matthew's gospel. It's only in Matthew. It's this really interesting parable about sheep and goats being divided, and they're being divided because of the deeds they did. Yeah. And the interesting crown jewel of that parable is where the king reveals, whatever you did to the least of these, you did to me, right? So what if we start with a posture of the work that I'm doing today, it's going to be like worship. It's going to be like singing my favorite banger, worship tune. Yeah. I'm going to have a skip in my step. I am going to try to elevate my teammates. I'm going to try to bear with that extra grace required teammate person who can drain me when they walk in the room. Like I'm tempted to ugh, you know. But you know what? I'm gonna give it my best. I may not be 100%, but I'm gonna have a posture of trying to be the most helpful person in this room, and then go away and celebrate when that happened, and do that consolation desolation thing. You know what? I didn't like it how I gossiped here. I didn't like how I kind of made a kind of an aggressive joke here. That didn't land well, and I'm gonna try not to do that next time around. Yep. Or you know what? I went out of my way and I saw this person was a little heavy-hearted, so I asked her about it, and she shared this, and now I can pray for her, and I feel like I was present to her needs more than just like the tasks on the task list, right?
Yeah.
So I think a few of those things probably go a long way in the right direction.
Yeah, that's good. I think this will be a continuing thing that all of us wrestle with, I think. But I think it's good to be mindful of it, to examine it, especially when we have a holiday that's carved out for that, for us to take some time to, think about that and see what changes we need to make. Because I think most of us probably could stand to make some changes.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know about you, but like my Labor Day is going to be fantasy football drafts.
Oh, yeah?
I have at least 2.
Really?
Like they're stacked up.
Nice.
So
one on past Monday and one on Friday. So
we're kind of getting it in a little bit late, but I think 7 a.m. is the best time that we could all make it. So like 7 a.m. on Labor Day on the holiday, there I am going to be auction drafting a very mediocre team.
Nice. Well, good luck to you on your draft. And to all of you, hope you have a great Labor Day.
Yeah, man.
Actually use it to take some time off and rest and be with your family. Do what you want to do.
Yeah.
That'd be a great way to honor that day. Yeah. And real quick, one more time, this Sunday again is another kind of big week at Ridgepoint. Yeah. Hopefully you were with us last week when we opened up the open house and you were able to check out everything. Building's awesome. We're excited about it. If you didn't get a tour around the building, you can again this week. So join us on Sunday. You can walk around the building. Most of our programming starts next Wednesday and Sunday.
Yeah, particularly for those who are in adult Sunday schools, that part of the building was off limits because of kids ministry.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering, like, where's my Sunday school class going to meet when we start on the 10th? It's a good time to come on down. We'll have a few on our team there to help steer you in the right direction so that you're prepared.
I think you and I will both be in that hallway on Sunday. So
that's right. Give us a high five, man.
Come say hi.
Yeah. Wear a frocket.
Yes. Love it. All right. Thanks for watching, listening. Have a great day, and we'll hope to see you Sunday or next week.
Yeah. See you next time.
See ya.